In this second video for this topic, we're going to talk a little bit about theories of morality. Now, many of you might be familiar with Kohlberg's stages of moral development, as it is the dominant theory in Western psychology. And I'm just going to do it briefly because this isn't Western psychology class, this is cultural psychology class. But if you recall, uh, Kohlberg viewed morality as developing across the child's development, I guess, anyway, built on Piaget's cognitive reasoning. That is, until a child has passed certain cognitive milestones, they cannot possibly exhibit certain moral behaviors, and it's very sensible. You have to be able to take the perspective of another before you can possibly consider the implications of your behavior on them. So there's something to it. And so his most famous research study, which again many of you have seen, is the Heinz and the drugs. And should Heinz steal the drug to save his wife? And this is what we've studied and seen before. And so he asked people, should Heinz steal the drug? Why or why not? And he's not particularly interested in what your response is to that, but instead, why did you make that choice? And so he found some patterns of responding to, Heinz and stealing the drug, especially when it came to ages. And so young children tend to give explanations that are at what he refers to as pre-conventional level, or these two stages within the level. But the key is it's morality based on the consequences to yourself. A good behavior is one that leads to an outcome that feels good for me. All right. So it's really morality based on operant conditioning, rewards and punishments, right? In the second day level, I guess, with two stages, and then the second level, conventional morality, and it's morality based on consequences to others, to the group around us. Okay. And then finally, in the third or top level, we have post-conventional morality, and it is morality based on higher abstract structures. That is to say, it's not based on the consequences to any actual human beings, but on some larger sense of in the universe, this is the way it should be, something of this nature. Now, Kohlberg also argues that most people do not make it to the level of post-conventional morality or moral reasoning, but even those people that have the ability to use higher levels of moral reasoning often don't. Okay, so you can see in this graph that across time, the amount of proportion of time or something that people demonstrate stage one moral reasoning drops to pretty much zero as they turn to teenage years, but stage two reasoning becomes very common. Okay, then you can see a rise in stage three reasoning as the child gets a little bit older. You can see a oh no, that's stage four that went skyrocketing. Okay, good, thank God. Okay, stage five, you can see just creeping out. He doesn't even show stage six. And so, yeah, just because somebody has a cognitive capacity to exhibit stage six moral reasoning doesn't mean they will. Okay, just that they have the capacity to. Okay? And so, Kohlberg argued this is a universal thing. It's all about evolutionism. That is, inside of each and every one of us, we have the potential to proceed through these six stages. Will you depends on your experiences. Okay, but yet when this gold standard for moral reasoning is now applied to cross-cultural populations, it fails miserably. Nobody, if you go to a tribal and a folk village, nobody showed stage three reasoning. None. Zero people. And since this is intimately tied to cognitive development, the implication is they don't exhibit stage three reasoning because they're stupid. It's like, I don't know if that's true. Some of them dudes are pretty darn smart, okay? So it might well do a good job of capturing moral reasoning of Westerners, but beyond that, not so much. So some alternatives have been presented, and the one that really sticks out in a cross-cultural sense is Schrader's model of moral reasoning, the CAD model. Okay, the CAD, community, autonomy, divinity. I guess I have them a little different. But the idea is moral reasoning is intimately connected to emotions. And as we said way back, even with C.S. Lewis, he said it, if you violate the natural law, you'll feel guilt. So he clearly has already indicated that there has. And so he argues that there's three different types of moral reasoning out there. And in fact, here's this example. A brother and sister are especially close, are traveling together through Europe. They decide to have sex with each other, though they enjoy it. They vow never to do it again. It will be their own secret. Why is it wrong? And you're like, it just is. Ew. And so you feel this emotional experience of disgust. And according to Schmader, if you have an emotional experience of disgust, it indicates that there has been a violation of what he refers to as the ethic of divinity. Okay? So here's the three different ones. So someone is edging ahead of you in line. You're in line and somebody's trying to cut the line. You feel anger. According to Schmader, that feeling of anger is an indication that there is a violation of the ethic of autonomy. The ethic of autonomy is all about, what's mine is mine. And it really captures well what Kohlberg had been doing in his model. The second one, however, is the ethic of community. And so here's a violation of community. Someone doesn't go to their own mother's funeral. And you're like, that's just wrong. What's wrong with you, dude? You feel contempt. And if you have the emotional experience of contempt, it's because somebody has violated community ethic. Okay? And then finally, divinity, just like we did with the brother sister. If you feel disgust, it's some kind of, and divinity, ethic of divinity is really tied back most strongly to C.S. Lewis's natural law or God's law. So the ethic of autonomy, morality is based on individual freedoms and rights violations, emphasizes personal choice, the right to engage in contracts, very individualistic reasoning. In fact, the Bill of Rights in the Constitution lays out what your rights are. Your rights, the freedom of the First Amendment to the Constitution, freedom of speech, Second Amendment, I'm not touching it, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment. And so they lay out your rights. You didn't have to earn them, and they're yours, and they can't be taken from you. Okay. Now, many other cultures look at this whole concept of autonomy like this as just idiotic. They're like, how could you possibly judge the goodness or rightness of a behavior or act based on the impact to an individual person? You have to look at the entire community. The entire community's outcomes are far more important than any one individual. And hence, the ethic of community tends to be the way that moral reasoning is often referred to in collectivistic cultures. That is, what is right and wrong is things that benefit the entire group the most. Okay? The ethic of divinity, however, is used in both collectivistic and individualistic cultures, but individuals within these cultures will use it to a greater or lesser degree. As a general rule, people that are more highly educated use the ethic of divinity less. People with lower levels of education use God's law more often. People that are, religiously religious tend to use it more. And so there's a variety of breakdowns. I mean, you could even break it down Republican voters and Democrat voters. How much do they fall back on the ethic of divinity or God's law? So here's a cool study. It's gonna have to take, I don't know, you got to read it. But basically, they've set up a scenario where this guy, he's got to make a choice. Does he steal a train ticket, right, which is a violation of the ethic of autonomy, or does he miss his friend's wedding where he has the ring and he's the best man? So they put together this conflict. You have to violate one of these, autonomy or community. What you gonna do? Okay. And so lo and behold, what happens is that the Indian sample was far, far, far more likely to, in this case, steal the ticket. That is to say, they felt that a community violation was far more extreme than an autonomy violation. And the American sample is just the exact opposite. They were much more likely to say the autonomy violation is problematic. And so the ethic of divinity is, as I said, transcends all cultures, and it is groups within different cultures. Um, Here is a lovely sentence for you. A man goes to the supermarket once a week and buys a dead chicken, but before cooking the chicken, he has sexual intercourse with it, and then he cooks and eats it. Oh, 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 you're right. That's the automatic response. And I hope that's the automatic response. You're like, that's just wrong. Okay. So now they lay out this scenario and then they bring it and propose